Aloha. Thanks for tuning in to Let's Talk Energy, where we're discussing all things energy on Maui, Molokai, and Lanai. I'm Kauiawai Dixon with Maui Electric, and I'm your host for today. In a prior episode, we talked about where our electricity comes from and how it's generated. So where it's generated at the source, from a variety of resources, whether that's wind or solar or even hydro. In addition to electricity being generated at our power plants, we discussed how we currently power our islands, all 3 islands of Maui County, with about 37% renewable resources, like I said, such as wind, solar, hydro, biomass. How we're working to add even more renewables into our energy mix, that's another thing that we're talking about. In continuing this conversation, now that we talked about where this power is made and generated, we want to teach you a little bit about how we actually get it to you, from where it's made to your homes and your businesses. So let's dive in. Once the power is generated on our island, as one customer asked, what is this electrical grid? So what is it that we're referring to when we see electrical grid? So to walk us through this process of how the power gets from the source where it's made to where it's needed, where all of our customers are, where all of you are, your homes and businesses. We have 2 of our manager and our superintendent from our transmission and distribution department, Gary Nuborski and Rod Morton. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So again, powering Maui County, we have about 70,000 customers here within the 3 islands that we power. Gary, tell us a little bit about transmission and distribution, that electrical grid. What exactly happens once the power is generated, once it's made? How do we get it to the folks that need it?
Well, once it's generated, it goes on our transmission lines, which are the tall towers across the island, and it's distributed to our substations where the voltage is changed from transmission voltage down to a distribution voltage. And then from there, it spreads out from the substations out to the end consumers on our distribution system. Those are the wires on the shorter poles. And once it gets to the customer, either the gray box on the pole or the green box in their yard, the voltage is stepped down again to the voltage that comes out of your outlet in your house, 120, 240 volts.
Okay, so certainly, it's a complex process. It really is. But what's important and what means the most to all of you, our community, is making sure that you have the power you need when you need it. To give some perspective of what Gary's talking about, he talked a little bit about electrical lines and power poles. Across Maui, about 240 miles of transmission lines exist. So that's literally the lines or the electrical wires that carry the power from the power plant to all of you where you need it. In addition to that, it's approximately 1,475 miles of distribution lines and over about 20,000 distribution utility poles that deliver the energy to all of you, our customers. So that said, customers also often asked, how come certain neighborhoods have underground power lines and how come others have overhead power lines? What's the difference, and how is that decision made?
Well, basically, let's take the case of a subdivision. If the developer sees fit to put the lines underground, he pays more money to do that than the standard overhead that we put up everywhere else, which is included in our rates. The big reason why you don't see everything underground is it's incredibly more expensive, and that would be reflected in the customer's rates. It's approximately 4 to 6 times more expensive to put a line underground than it is to build it overhead.
Yeah, so I guess the bottom line, it sounds like it really comes down to cost.
It really does.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about in a prior episode that powering our islands is really about a balance. it's about a balance of course, cost, and trying to keep it as affordable as possible, we possibly can for all of our customers, making sure it's always there for you, so it's reliable, And then, of course, getting to a point in our future where the power that we provide is clean. So balancing all of that out can sometimes be a challenge. As I mentioned earlier, we do power all 3 islands of Maui, Molokai, and Lanai, and it's important to note that each of those grids are completely separated and isolated, okay? So they stand on their own, and each of them individually have to be maintained, yes, on each of those islands, and that's, of course, to ensure that that power is reliable, it's safe, and it's there when you need it. Gary, talk a little bit about when power outages occur, what are some of the causes for these outages?
Well, the major cause of our outages is vegetation, trees, mango plants, vines. By a large distance, that is the leading cause. After that, it's automobiles, people hitting our poles, people hitting our facilities. The vegetation we can do, we trim very extensively. Automobiles a little bit more difficult to take care of. I mean, even in situations where we have underground, a car hits one of the big green boxes where we have switching that goes on. It's a very long outage to fix that. So it's just really, those are our 2 biggest causes. After that, the other causes are small, but it's vegetation and cars.
So as we said earlier, providing power oftentimes is about restoring power, especially when there are power outages. We talked a little bit earlier about some of the key causes of outages, and we identified that 2 key causes are trees and lines, so trees, branches that come down on lines, come down on poles, and car accidents. So it's just cars hitting poles. So getting back to the vegetation management, and when we do have a situation when there's a storm, and we do have trees and lines come down on, or trees, branches come down on lines, power is out. Rod Morton and his crew basically are the guys that respond, and they're the guys that are out there trying to get power back to our customers, all of you. So Rod, talk to us a little bit about what someone would see if they saw you guys from the time you guys picked up the phone until they were ready to turn those lights back on. What happens? Because there's a lot that happens in between that time period.
There is a lot that happens. We'll get the calls about the lines being down or the outages in certain areas. Our first responders, which is our PTMs, or even our inspectors and our servicemen, sometimes we'll go out to that area, assess the situation, find where the trouble is, then report back to the dispatch and supervisors, and then they'll make the call as far as how many crews that we're going to actually dispatch to the problem. They'll see if what kind of issues we have to get access to the actual troubled area. Sometimes there are trees on the road that we can't even get to the area where the outage is at.
Right.
There's road closures and other issues that we have to take care of prior to that. So then we work with other departments like county and state.
Yeah, I know that you guys work with the county and
getting
different
the roads
entities.
cleared, and then they'll help us get access to. We work a lot with MPD on outages and stuff. And then once we get to that area, we do a better assessment of the area and the outage area. And then what we'll do is we'll isolate.
What does that mean?
Isolate that section is basically we're cutting clear the lines that are coming into that area, so that when the crews are working on the line, that area that is down and on the ground is totally isolated, separate from the grid, so there's no chance of getting energized.
Okay.
And then once we do that, then we'll go back in and then we'll start restoring, cutting clear all the trees, picking up the poles, replacing them if we have to, restringing the wires and getting everything back up, and then tying everybody back in.
Right, and oftentimes, again, we're talking about oftentimes storm situations, high winds, lots of rain, sometimes in the middle of the night, so getting all this work done during pretty treacherous conditions, at times, Yeah. But again, restoring power is not just about restoring it as quickly as we can, which we all always do, but it's about doing it safely because we never want to sacrifice the safety of our crews and, of course, all of our entire community, our general public at all. That's always first and foremost. Rod, Gary, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Up next, as we noted, we are in the midst of hurricane season, which runs from June to November. And with a particularly active storm season predicted this year, please stay tuned for our What Happens Next segment, when we actually learn some important steps that you can take within your own household to make sure that you're prepared, your family and yourselves. So should a natural disaster occur, we want to make sure that you're safe.
Hello everyone, I'm Alan.
And I'm Esty.
And I'm Becca.
And we're your hosts for Hawaiian Electric's What Happens When video series.
In What Happens When, we take a look at questions our customers ask us.
And we ask our employees to find the answers for us using demonstrations and experiments.
So today, we're going on a field trip.
Ooh, field trip.
So where are we going, Alan?
We're going to take a visit to our System Operations Command Center, or SOCC, which is a perfect place to ponder today's question.
And that question would be?
What happens when a storm causes a power outage?
So you mean if the power goes out? If the power goes out, it gets dark. There's no lights, duh.
Yeah, if the power goes out and the lights go out, it gets dark. But if a storm does hit us and we do lose power, heaven forbid that ever happens, and knock on wood, that we have calm and safe winds. But what happens on our side? What does the electric company do?
I get it. What do our employees do to safely and quickly restore power to our customers?
Bingo. Oh look, we're here. Here we are in our System Operations Command Center, where our Oahu employees respond to and manage trouble calls about power outages.
Each of our three companies, Hawaiian Electric, Maui Electric, and Hawaii Electric Light, has a command center similar to this one.
And each of the companies responds to outages in similar ways.
In 2014, Tropical Storm Iselle entered the Hawaiian waters and impacted the Hawaiian Islands.
The Puna area on Hawaii Island was particularly hit hard. Here to explain the recovery effort is Kenyon Beals from Hawaii Electric Light.
Aloha everyone, it's Kenyon from Hawaii Electric Light on the beautiful island of Hawaii. As Alan said, we hope we never encounter a storm that's strong enough to cause a power outage. But in the event that we do, the electric companies on Hawaii Island, Maui County, and Oahu have a plan and are prepared to safely restore power as quickly as possible to our customers. So here's some basic steps we take to safely restore power after a storm. Please keep in mind that every situation is different and that each company has its own specific process. Step 1. Safety and assessment. As with anything our companies work on, our top priority is the safety of our communities and our crews. Our first step in any power restoration effort is to address public safety and assess damage. Field crews assess the extent of any damage caused by a storm and the specific materials and equipment that need to be repaired or replaced. This can include utility poles, transformers, and power lines. Step 2. Repairs high voltage transmission lines. Transmission lines serve as the backbone of our electric systems. When these towers and lines are damaged, they must often be repaired before other parts of the system can work. This step sometimes involves flying in materials, equipment, and personnel to remote areas. It may also involve clearing fallen trees and debris, as well as digging holes for utility poles. Step 3. Repairs substations. Substations help to transform voltage as electricity travels from our generating stations to your neighborhoods and can serve thousands of electric customers. When a major outage occurs, we need to address issues at substation sites first to determine if the problem stems from lines feeding into a substation or at the substation itself. Step 4. Repairs distribution lines. Distribution lines carry power to large groups of customers in communities or neighborhoods. These need to be checked and repaired before. Step 5. Repairs neighborhood lines. In this final step, tap lines are checked and repaired to restore power to the neighborhood. We can then verify that a customer's electrical connecting point is safe to use. At this stage, we can often incrementally restore larger groups of customers using a process called switching. transferring them to an alternate circuit, if available, to restore power. Remember, these steps are slightly different across our three companies, but the basic underlying principle is the same throughout, taking the necessary precautions to ensure the safety of our communities and crews, and doing systematic assessments and checks to restore power as quickly as possible. Mahalo, guys. Back to you. I always wanted to say that.
Now that was cool.
Yes, it was, and it was pretty involved.
Yeah, I had no idea all the steps we had to take to restore power safely.
You know what, Becca? You bring up a good keyword. Safety. The electric companies are all about safety. And as a matter of fact, I think Esty has a safety segment that she wants to share with everyone.
That I do. Today's safety segment is about portable generators. Many families have portable generators as part of their emergency preparedness kits. Portable generators emit carbon monoxide, an odorless and poisonous gas. For this reason, generators should never be used indoors. And even when using the generator outdoors, remember to keep them well away from open doors, windows, or vents. For more emergency preparedness tips, download our free handbook at www.hawaiianelectric.com/prepare. And remember, safety first, safety always.
Great safety segment, Esty.
Yeah, great job.
And there you have it. That's what happens when a storm causes a power outage and what our crews do to safely restore power as quickly as possible.
For more safety tips, visit our website at hawaiianelectric.com. Thanks for joining us.
Aloha.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Energy, where we discuss all things energy on Maui, Molokai, and Lanai. Now, we welcome viewers to send in their energy-related questions, topics for future shows. Send them to us via email at letstalkenergy@mauielectric.com. In talking about how power is delivered to our homes, our schools, our businesses throughout Maui County, joining us here is Eddie Quintana, one of our troublemen in the field. Eddie, as a first responder, a troubleman, tell us a little bit about what your job entails. What exactly do you do? What's a troubleman do?
Well, I usually get a call from dispatch, and it depends on what the situation is. They usually tell me they have one person out or many people out or a pole hit with nobody out. It depends on what they tell me, what I'm looking forward to seeing. Usually if it's just one person, I go to their home. If it's many people, I go to the next source that's in that area. If it's thousands of people, I go to the substation and try to start isolating the problem to the smallest number of people so we can bring on as many people as we can as quick as possible.
When a call comes in, a customer calls and there's power out, or we see it on the system, you guys really are the first call, yeah, and you guys are the first on the scene.
Normally, we're the first on the scene unless there's been a car accident,
Sure,
which
right.
the fire and police department will be there, or a tree on the line that's burning. Police and fire usually beat me to the call.
Yeah.
They're much quicker response than we are.
Okay. The one thing that a question we've had from customers in the past, and something that I think is really, really important for us to address is, if customers see a line on the ground, do they assume that line is energized or on? Do they assume that line is off? And this is a situation where literally, you have an electrical line that's broken off a pole, it's laying on the ground. So if we have a customer that comes across that line, what do they do?
We would always like them to assume every line is hot, whether it looks like it's telephone or Cablevision or power lines, because you could be just inches away from it becoming energized due to the situation. We treat it all as everything is hot until we have traced it out and found out the source is not energized. So we would like them to treat it as energized every time.
Great, Eddie. So, that's just a behind, sort of the behind the scenes look at what happens when the first call comes in that there's an outage that occurs out there. And again, Eddie's a part of our transmission and distribution team, and a part of the primary troublemen, who are typically the first ones from Maui Electric who are on the scene to assess the situation. And again, like he said, it's all about trying to isolate or trying to impact as few customers as possible as we try to restore or fix the problem that's in place. So thanks very much, Eddie, for giving us your little bit of your time and your knowledge, and helping our customers and understand a little bit about what our primary troublemen do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. To give you another inside perspective of the various jobs we have at Maui Electric, please stay tuned for a segment we call Getting to Know MECO, featuring one of our employees, Nolan Burns, one of our diesel operators on Lanai.
My name is Nolan Burns. I'm a diesel operator on Lanai. Okay. When I first got here, I was a operator helper, and then I filled a vacant diesel operator spot. I was born and raised in Maili on Oahu on the west side. I went to a few different elementary schools on the leeward side, and then I graduated from Kamehameha High Schools in Kapalama. After that, I went to the Coast Guard for 8 years. I had numerous different jobs before I landed one at Covanta Energy in Campbell on Oahu, and that's where I started my power plant career. And I like this country life on Lanai. I recently took up hunting, and I was always a waterman. I dived pretty much all my life. I met my wife a long time ago. We got married a few years before we moved here. So when we came, I bought them like a week after. So her and my two girls, Kaya and Kyrie, they're both young yet, 9 and 6. So I want them to grow up in a good environment. Everything about this job is awesome. I think it's more of a responsibility thing to the people and to the customers to keep power going to them. Hi, I'm Nolan Burns, and thank you for getting to know me.
Thanks again for tuning in. This is Let's Talk Energy with Maui Electric, where we talk about all things energy in Maui County. During these summer months, we're often celebrating graduations, and it's prime fruit picking season. So what exactly does this have to do with energy? Today we have Bobby Motooka, who's here with us. He is our Director of Safety, and he's going to share a few very important safety tips to keep in mind when it comes to things like fruit picking and graduation season. So Bobby, can you walk us through some of the safety concerns when it comes to things like fruit picking? It's prime mango season, great time of year for all of us here in Hawaii. But tell us about the safety concerns and some of the safety tips that our folks should know about.
Sure, thank you. When picking fruits, there are some safety concerns, and in particular, if our electric lines are close to the tree. So we advise the public to stay at least 10 feet away from our electrical lines, and that includes 10 feet with your pole or a ladder. So if there are some concerns, we ask them to give us a call, and we can go and help them assess the situation to make it safe for them.
Good, thank you very much. That's really, really important safety tips that everyone should keep in mind, especially during this season. Now, I talked a little bit about graduation just a bit ago, and there is a correlation there with safety. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, during graduation, often metallic balloons come into play, and metallic balloons, if you let them loose, can get caught into our lines and our system and cause outages. And some of the outages may bring our lines down, which makes it unsafe for our employees or the public in general. So that's of concern.
Absolutely, and if I'm not mistaken, that actually happened just a few months ago. Did that not in Kahului somewhere where we had a metallic balloon get caught in lines and the line came down, right?
Yes, it did in
Yeah.
Kaului and also in Lahaina. They caused an outage for the entire Lahaina Luna Road. So
Yeah, so inconvenience due to the outage itself, and then of course it can, of course, become a safety issue. Dig-ins, tell us first of all what is a dig-in?
dig-ins occur when there is underground conduit and the homeowner or contractor digs into a line, makes contact with our electrical lines. So those are definitely of concern. So we ask them to call the 811, which is the one call, and utilities will come out there and locate the utilities. For Maui Electric, we will locate our underground electrical lines and inform them where to dig and where not to dig. So again, that's of concern if they dig into our lines. And it's similar to making contact with our overhead lines. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this is just it can be just very simple work at home. Maybe digging the hole for a clothesline of some sort. Very simple work that you just never know if there's underground utility lines or electrical lines that you should be aware of. When it comes to utility poles, and again, graduation season, where we see graduation party signs everywhere, and even everyday garage sales, stuff like that. Yeah, there is a concern there as well.
Yes, there is a concern for our employees that may have to climb the pole, and often if a banner or a sign is attached to the pole, it's attached with a metal nail or staple, and that metal object could puncture our linemen's personal protective equipment, in particular their rubber gloves, and that could compromise their safety. So we ask the public not to attach anything to our utility poles.
Yeah, and again, our bottom line, of course, power, getting our power to our customers is it's a priority, but we're never going to sacrifice, never going to sacrifice safety. So all of these are very, very, very important safety reminders to keep in mind as we are at home, at school, and at the workplace, throughout the summer, particularly with it being graduation and again, fruit picking season. Thanks very much, Bobby, for sharing this information with us and sharing this with our customers. All very, very important. A new episode of Let's Talk Energy will air on the first Tuesday of every month at 8 p.m. right here on Akaku Channel 55. And as always, we welcome viewers to please submit energy-related topics, future topics for future shows. Send them to us at letstalkenergy@mauielectric.com. Mahalo, and we'll see you next time.